Hi, my name is James, and I would like to talk to you about filmmaking. So a few weeks ago, I came down here with my friend Devin to shoot a new short film called Siren's Gate. This is the first short film I've been able to make since the pandemic started. The goal was to try to be able to do so safely, but also make a really interesting film. Fun fact, Siren's Gate had no actual script. The closest thing we had to a script was a text message I sent Devin explaining exactly what was going to happen. This was more or less an opportunity just to, test out a couple of ideas. Never been a fan of camera tests. I've actually made entire short films just to test out new gear. Some of those films include Attack the Dojo, which did surprisingly well at the Action on Film Festival last year. Yeah, right now we're underneath multiple highways, kicking off a lot of particulates, a lot of debris. Air quality down here is not great, so I'm gonna be regretting this a lot tomorrow. We got really lucky with the train. And I say that because when we got here, the train was already going. It was like halfway done. And I'm thinking there's no possible way we could be finished and set up and ready with enough time to incorporate that train. But man, would that make some really great production value. So after setting up the gimbal and setting up the camera and setting up his gimbal and setting up his camera, the train's still going. Like, this is a never-ending train. So, you know what? Time to start rushing. And it really added to the scene. The movement of the train contrasting against the movement of Devin really kind of it created a shot that was so much more epic than if it had just been random train tracks in the background. Truth be told, this is what you'd call kind of a rocket ship or just an adrenaline type of shoot. We shot this movie in 2 hours on a budget of $10. That is absolutely correct figures. We're here at historic Buffalo Wild Wings, the site of our very first deleted scene. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. How the hell is a 2-hour shoot? How do you wind up with deleted scenes? Well, it surprised me too. This was cut mainly because it was just kind of boring, really. It was just Devin walking around with the gimbal in underslung mode. There was dumpsters around. The ground, I guess, was kind of neat. We're just kind of like spitballing ideas. It didn't work out, and frankly, I don't think the film is any worse off for having it be gone. So a few weeks ago when I was filming, just kind of shooting around with my friend Paul, we kind of came across this alley, and it's just this really neat kind of cobblestone, old-time, like brick alley. It just has a lot of personality to it. And frankly, I think the shot that introduces it might be one of the best shots in the entire film. You know what's cool? Puddles. You know what's cooler than puddles? Puddles on cobblestone. And the fact that Devin was almost immediately drawn to it kind of gave me this idea. I should try to use that as a transitional tool. I didn't know if it was gonna work. I didn't know if it was bright enough to actually make it happen, but when you're flying by the seat of your pants on a production like this, the benefit is if you wanna do something, just do it, just try it. Turns out it worked out perfectly, except for one minor detail. When he's walking away, he has the gimbal in underslung mode. If you missed that continuity flub the first time, you're welcome. And that brings us to the Canal, which frankly, the Canal is just an awesome overall place to film. This is the second time I've made something down here. The first time was my film, Video Sniced.
Are you familiar with Kevin Bacon?
Yeah? What's that got to do with anything?
Everything. It has everything to do with him, Kyle. Now, connect Kevin Bacon to Michael Douglas in 6 films or less, or die.
Wait. Are we playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? It served a really great purpose then, and it served a really great purpose this time as more of a picturesque transition. We went from the train station and the highways to a very rustic looking alley, and now we have this very picturesque kind of canal, murky brown water and all. And that also brings us to the location of our second deleted scene. It's not so much that the location looked bad. It looked very nice. It's that the film's pacing needed a bit of a bump. You know, we just needed to get to the tunnel. We needed to get to the Siren's gate just a bit faster. And unfortunately, that section of the canal just couldn't make it. So you seeing it here is the first time anyone's really gonna get to see it. And that, of course, brings us to the gate of Siren's Gate. I was scouting this a few weeks ago. Honestly, it's a lot creepier at nighttime, and that's kind of what inspired this, but what also inspired this was my desire to try to pull off a Hitchcock shot. If for anyone who's not familiar with the dolly zoom, or the Hitchcock zoom as it's sometimes called, it's a situation where you move the camera either toward the subject or away from them while zooming in or out. And back in the day, this was a really complex process. Cameras were heavier, cameras were bigger. What you had to do was you had to have one guy operating the camera, one guy, at least one guy, maybe two, operating the dolly, a third guy operating the zoom, and a fourth guy whose job was to make sure the shot stayed in focus. That's a lot of guys. That's a lot of complexity. And knowing that, I want you to watch this next shot from Rachel.
Come on, Ray.
It hurts me just thinking about how they pulled that off. But we live in a digital age. We live in an age of amazing technology, and we live in an age of 4K video, which makes the process a whole lot simpler. See, when I was shooting this, I had my Blackmagic Pocket 4K on a gimbal. So therefore, you didn't need dolly guys. You didn't need a focus puller because I had the whole thing in as much in focus as I could. And most of all, you don't need to zoom the lens. What you need to do is you need to push in or you need to pull back from your subject, and then in post, you do the zoom digitally. I didn't 100% know this was gonna work. Once again, it's the benefit of having such a low stakes production. $10, 2 hours, there are benefits. I didn't know exactly how this was all gonna go or how it was all gonna look. So when I pulled it off with Devin on the first day, with only a few takes, that gave me a lot of encouragement. So I came back about a week later to get the opening shot of the gate itself. Now, this was going to be more complicated. The camera was going to be much lower to the ground. It was going to be harder to keep it stable. What was I going to do? How was I going to make that happen? And what I wound up doing was I put a cheap little $20 monopod from Walmart onto the bottom of the gimbal, hunched over in a manner that's probably going to be terrible for my back someday, and then I just took the camera and walked backwards. I came into this expecting to have to do it at least maybe 20-ish times before I got it right, just before it got smooth enough. Walked away having done 4 takes. That includes safeties. I was absolutely stunned at the quality that I got and how easy it was. So if you are a gimbal user and you're looking to make your gimbal work more smooth, consider putting a little cheap monopod on the bottom of it. It allows you to, I guess, maneuver it almost like a staff. So yeah, expensive problem with an incredibly cheap solution. So that's pretty much it. 2 hours, $10. And honestly, I'd say we wound up with a pretty decent film out of it. It also, more importantly than anything, gave me an opportunity to grow my skill set. And most importantly of all, it gave me the opportunity to make films again. That has been bothering me a lot since the beginning of the lockdown, since the beginning of the pandemic, since the shit show that is 2020 began. And I know that I am very much in a privileged position to be able to say that. And honestly, I know we're all gonna get through this. I don't know what it's gonna look like on the other end. Maybe it'll be better. Fingers crossed.